Welcome back to the coverage of YCS Prague, where we are now in the top 8. That means we have already seen 10 rounds of intense dueling in the Swiss portion of the event. 2 more rounds, the top 32 and the top 16 in the knockout portion of the event. And now we've made it to the top 8.
Yes, it's incredibly exciting. We still have Qliphort in the picture. We still have Nekroz in the picture.
Yeah.
We're not too sure on how the Burning Abyss played it. Have we got that?
And we got one Burning Abyss still
and the Burning Abyss
in
is
competition.
still in competition as well. So we still have the 3 decks that we saw coming into the top 32.
And the funny thing about that is that we have the player still in the top 8 who we featured earlier. So let's take a look at the top 16 breakdown, where you can see all the players that advanced to the top 16. And it's not exactly been updated with the top 8. However, I got the reader. So
there we go.
There we go, yeah. You can see we're going to take a look now at the pairing in the upper left corner between Alpai Engin, who won his last round, against Chris Bose. And we've seen Chris Bose before when he was on the bubble, and he won and made it into the top 32. He's playing Qliphort, and he's the only Qliphort player remaining in competition. Also, who we just saw was Fabio Polito and Peter Meyer in our round top 16 feature match.
Yep.
And
Fabio took that there.
Yes, and then Dennis Bekiri and Patrick Reeder. The winner here is Denis Bekwiri.
Dennis, they're knocking out, as we said before, the winner of YCS London 2013.
Yeah, but again, another great result from Patrick Reeder.
Definitely.
In the upper right corner, we got Valence Letertre from France, and he is the Burning Abyss player that we saw, I think, yesterday on the stream.
That was him, yes.
And he has to go up against Piran Aski, who just kicked out Michel Gruner in a thriller. Those guys went 40 minutes into overtime.
Wow.
Almost like a football match between the two Germans here. Then we got Sona Günger, who advanced to the top 8, kicking out Tom Fierguts. And last but certainly not least, another player that we had on the stream before, Christopher Nielsen from Denmark. With that, you know who's in the top 8. The force to be reckoned with is Alpai Engin. He is 24-0 in games. He has not dropped, according to his statement in the top 8 profile, he hasn't dropped a single game.
Nice.
So even though you might not think of him as a giant, because Alpai is not exactly the tallest player.
No, he is not.
He is one. And in that case, it's an abbreviation, because he's a global icon and a national treasure for Germany, the 2-time winner of the YCS. So let's take you to the table where he's going up against Chris Bose, who we saw earlier with the Qliphort deck. So there you have it, guys. Alpai on the left and Chris on the right. And Alpai with his favorite piece of clothing, that little coat that he loves to pull back time and time again while he's playing.
Now, he has just set pretty much his entire hand. That was Mystical Space Typhoon, Book of Eclipse, Nekroz Cycle, and Raigeki.
And he's left with just a Nekroz of Valkyros in hand. He knows that Chris Bose is playing Qliphort, because Chris Bose was sitting right next to him. Or, well, there was a little bit of a distance in between.
Yeah.
But he could tell in the top 16 match. And you can expect all the players in the top 16 to be aware of what each other is playing.
Yep. Now, he has just sat there, played the scout, paid 800. There was no response from Mystical Space Typhoon there. So the search goes through. But even if there was, there is Summoner's Art on the field.
Yeah, and interesting. Why does Alpai not use the Mystical Space Typhoon here?
It's a good question, but I believe it's just in case that face-down card is one of the floodgates that's really going to stop him getting to grips with what he needs to do later on.
So
Plus,
it seems Alpai has a slightly different strategy than your ordinary Nekroz player, I would say.
A lot of the pro players that you see are constantly thinking, well, I know exactly what I'm playing against, and I know when I'm going to need this card. You may sit and look and think, why are they holding on to that card? And then 4 turns later, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, Recreate is coming out, and there we go. That's probably what the Mystical Space Typhoon is going to be for.
Yeah. So Alpai doesn't mind his opponent searching out the Recreate, because he can get rid of it, and that's much more valuable than getting rid of the Scout, I would say.
Pretty much at the moment.
Because eventually his opponent is going to get his hands on the Recreate.
Yep. Now, there is the ability to be able to drop most of the hand onto the field as well with Chris Bose. So we're looking at going straight under Trishula.
Yes. One very interesting strategy that we've seen Qli players apply before, especially Peter Meyer in our top 16 feature match.
Yeah.
All right, so there's the Upstart Goblin card that also I think we haven't seen all weekend. Very straightforward effect. Your opponent gets 1,000 life points, good for Alpai, and you draw a card.
Yeah.
Good for yourself. So again, 24-0. How is that possible? How do you not drop a single game over the course of a tournament?
And he's the only person to have done that as well.
Yeah. And I asked Alpai about it, and he just replied, losing is no fun.
Yeah.
That was his reasoning. All right, there's the Summoner's Art for a Monolith, I presume. I can't quite make it out. It's another Scout, right?
It's the second Scout.
But
and it looks like he's playing it as well to get a second search.
That is very interesting because he pretty much locked himself out of Pendulum Summoning.
I think he's assuming that one of those is probably going to be the card. A Vanity's Emptiness. I don't know why Vanity's Emptiness. I couldn't remember the name of the card then. Everyone is playing Vanity's Emptiness in one way or another.
So this is also an interesting line of play that I think we've never seen before from a Qli player. And do you agree with setting one first, then searching for the Scout, searching for Recreate, and then setting another card so the opponent pretty much knows this is Recreate?
It's not necessarily Recreate. It's not Recreate.
Okay, so either interesting bluff or... Well,
now Chris Bose actually has Skill Drain and Recreate in hand.
So he's holding on to his, well, floodgates, as they are often called. And I gotta say, it's very interesting because both players not making your typical moves that you can see when you're watching Qliphort or Nekroz here. Alpai mostly because he's a little bit pushed into a position where he doesn't want to do anything else. Also interesting, he didn't search for the Scout this turn, did he?
So he searched with both Scouts.
With both Scouts?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, that's...
He searched for Recreate, and then he searched for a Sacrifice.
But did you catch that it was Alpai's turn and Alpai passed right back?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, so because that's what happened, I think. That's why Chris Bose had another turn, and that's when he played the Helix and flipped the what's the name?
Oh no, Sacrifice is because it's an equipped
Sacrifice.
spell card. He doesn't have to. He can just flip it in
Yeah.
as soon as he sets it.
Yeah, no, of course he can. Yeah. Okay, so Alpai now has the Manchu, and he hits play.
And of course, now would be the time to chain the Recreate.
There is the Recreate, and now we might be
read it.
Yeah, just making sure again that the card does what he thinks it does, and now it's going to be time for the MST, I think. Oh no.
Book of Eclipse.
Book of
because
Eclipse.
Then it's not face up anymore, and the effect should still go through, I believe.
Let's take a look at Recreate. In that regard, it would be like Skill Drain, really. Alpai Engin is not one of those players where you can expect him to know all the workings of all the cards. We have seen him before, not knowing about some of the effects, but he's got a... I think he's got it in his blood, really, the whole dueling thingy.
Now he has just given a Sacrifice search there as well, which he's getting him a stealth. And kind of good idea as well. I mean, he's got 2 Scouts out on the field. His opponent would have to get rid of both of them to stop him from getting a Sacrifice.
So what do you think about not using the MST on the Recreate? Because if he would be going for a Ritual Summon here, he would still be... his monster would still be affected by the Recreate.
It's possible that he can just get rid of the Recreate before he attempts to summon.
Yeah, but
I think he's saving it for a Vanity's Emptiness.
to make sure that his monster is going to hit the field.
Yep. So even if they're negated and may be banished, they're still large monsters.
All right.
And he's just gone and got Bryonic. Bryonic has been discarded.
For sure it. And
interestingly, he has a Nekroz mirror.
yeah, he's
set.
playing it from below. There is the Nekroz mirror, and now he wants to see one of the floodgates, but
It isn't there.
there is no Vanity's Emptiness, and with that, having tested the waters, Alpai Engin knows that his opponent doesn't have Vanity's Emptiness, unless Chris Bose would be holding on to it. So Necros of Volcurus hitting play.
And its effects are being negated, so it won't be able to... Oh, actually, would it be able to still tribute for...
Yeah,
and then activate in the graveyard, I believe that's correct.
well, it wouldn't be face up on the field. That's the important part here. And he adds another Brinac to his hand.
It would be banished, however.
Yes, so no repeat uses of the Brinac. Yeah, of the Valkyrus, as we have seen in past games. There is the attack with Valkyrus. And the first Pendulum monster ending up on top of the extra deck.
No, he's going to read the card again.
Yeah, and he's still going to draw for Nekroz of Valkyrus because his monster is not going to be on the field. And also, it doesn't matter if they end up in the graveyard or not. He just has to tribute them to draw cards.
Now, Mask of Restrict is a very powerful card against Nekroz. One that not a lot of people are actually using either.
So Alpai just passing play. It's a very interesting situation with no lock. Well, in a way, Chris Bose locked himself with those two scouts. He cannot pendulum summon, really, but he can search a lot of cards. At the same time, he needs to watch his life points for a little bit. And Alpai is low on cards on the field, or, well, mostly in his hand with just the Brinac. And on the field, he's got the Raigeki, the Mystical Space Typhoon, and the Manju.
Oh, he has nothing to fear from the set. Snatch Steal either.
Yes. I think Alpai is waiting to push through one big time. And he doesn't mind his Valkyrus. Well, at least he doesn't mind too much, it being negated and all. And also, don't keep in mind that directly it only negates the effects for the turn in which the monster was summoned.
But it will still be banished when it leaves the field.
True that, yes. And on the very bottom of the screen, you can see our little marquee running through that tells you about the deck breakdown. And interestingly enough, the top 16 deck breakdown is basically the same as the top 32 breakdown with all the numbers halved. So 12 Nekroz instead of 24, 3 Qliphort instead of 6, and 1 Burning Abyss instead of 2, my god. So there is the Nekroz of Valkyrus, still on the field after it was picked up, and Stealth and Disc in Chris Bose's hand. And you know Chris Bose, you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
He seems to be a very nice guy.
He is.
Can you tell us anything else about him?
Well, he comes to a lot of events. He likes to play in regionals. Generally doesn't try to cause any trouble, so it generally does quite well. It's easy. It's nice enough to say about some players that that they're not there to cause trouble. They're there to have a lot of fun, but not to try to annoy anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a really nice guy. Plays a lot. He unfortunately, sometimes when I do turn up to a regional, I find him just wandering around because he's turned up a bit too late. But no.
This time he's here in time.
He's definitely on time.
All right, he's got a Qliphort disc that I think he just searched for that with, he searched for the sacrifice with one of the scouts.
Yep, and that's on 2,800. He can then just drop the sacrifice, making it 2,000. Oh, he's actually hitting the skill drain as well to make sure that it...
Is now going to be the time for Alpai to activate the MST?
I doubt it, because Recreate still would just do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, so very unlikely.
I'm confused as to why he played it at that point.
Maybe he wants to... No, he's not going to make sure
because... He can't pendulum summon. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah. And it's not like Alpai was forcing him into that position.
No. Oh, but yes, he is playing the Mystical Space Typhoon on the skill drain. Okay, so that has removed the threat of Mystical Space Typhoon. Will he then snatch Steal?
Yes, so many options for both of these players. And
he's setting the sacrifice there. Snatch Steal is happening.
The Snatch Steal. And now Alpai is losing his monster. And he would be left without a field.
Now, Raigeki is set face down. So it's basically going to do exactly the same thing to Chris.
Right, are there any other interesting options? I mean, Nekroz of Valkyros is a level 8 monster. The disc is also a level 8 monster at this moment, right?
It is, yes.
So
it's also unaffected.
Level 7, sorry.
Yep, it's also unaffected by anything that's got a level lower than it.
So there's a big attack, and that causes a huge swing in life points with Alpai Engin taking 2,900.
Yes, so now he's on 4,000 life points, currently in the lead, but he will gain 1,000 because of Snatch Steal. Now, there are ritual spell cards in the graveyard and a Bryonic in hand.
And
now he's thinking about actually tributing by the sound of it.
Yeah, and he's asking who's going to draw a card. And since that effect shouldn't activate in the graveyard, but rather on the field when you tribute, it would be him, it would be Chris who would be drawing cards as far as I understand.
But it would also still be banished. Now, summoners out here probably going to be getting the
monolith?
Yeah. So he can tribute 2 monsters, more than likely.
Yeah, there is the monolith. And all of that very bad news for Alpai, who's only got a Raigeki, and Alpai not looking amused.
I'll be honest with you, the word "only" is the word there, because he's got he's still got a Bryonic in hand. He's got no monsters on his side of the field. So he's basically, the way I can see it is Raigeki is going to take out that field. Whichever ritual card's in the graveyard is going to be banished.
And again,
ritual card to the hand with Bryonic in the graveyard to go and get a ritual monster.
Just like in the game before, Qliphort is causing quite a lot of confusion for the opponent of the Qli player. And there is a judge, just to explain it again, how the card works. If you want to take another look, we can bring it one more time for you. It's very interesting support for the Qli archetype, very often just a one-off. I also haven't seen it in the side decks, so you could add the number and play 2 copies or 3 copies in a second or a possible third game.
It's one of those cards that you will be able to search out. Okay, it looks like he's tributing it, and I believe the card is banished at that point. And he's just checking again. When it leaves the field. So yeah, it would be banished.
Yeah, that part of the effect. Yeah, it's also banished when it leaves the field. It's a new, so to speak, it's a new sentence. It has nothing to do with during the turn. It is special summoned.
Alpai just checking again. Chris
is fairly happy with how the card should be working.
Yep, there's the smile.
And
okay.
So now we got a minor disagreement. It seems, well, the third question about that card. This card is definitely the MVP of the weekend in terms of how to confuse a player.
Yes. We actually have the head judge waiting on standby just in case there's any sort of questions. She is looking a little bit anxious, as if she wants to come over there and just explain that it's definitely going to be banished.
Yeah.
And he gets to draw 2 cards there. And what has he drawn? Let's find out. A disc and a scout.
Yeah, so nothing super fancy that he was needing. I mean, in a way, he already had everything he needed.
Let's see how this plays out.
And Alpay's got the Nekroz of Bryonic, and he drew into a Senju of the 1,000 hands. However, keep in mind, the Qliphort is putting him under a very bad condition. His Senju is not going to be allowing him to search. So discarding the Bryonic. And now this is it. He needs to search for something that can get him out of this lock. It makes you wonder, would it have been better very early on for Alpai to activate that MST on the first scout? I mean, he's
Not
now in a...
necessarily. I mean, the second scout only got him one extra card.
Yeah, but he's now in a very, very bad position. Would he have been in a different position? I mean, he definitely would have been in a different position if he would have had activated that MST right there early on.
Not a massively different position
No,
to what he's in now.
Okay.
If he would have saved it for the Snatch Steal, that would have been a different story.
So he's got the Shurit Strategist of the Nekroz, adding it to his hand. And he also is allowed to search his deck for a ritual spell card after he banished the Mirror from his graveyard together with a Nekroz monster, Nekroz ritual monster.
Oh, we could probably see that being a mirror.
And now he's got the Cycle in hand. And there is the Senju.
Okay, and it's negated.
Yes, and
He's picking up his deck.
Alpai is picking up his deck because...
Not quite sure. It was normal summon, so it should have been negated. Hopefully the judge picked up on that. And
So... Is there anything we're missing here?
no, Recreate should have definitely negated the effect of...
Senju.
Yeah. Which would have made this turn much, much different to what's happening right now. It wouldn't have actually been game at that point.
Yeah, I think like none of this would have happened unless I'm missing something, but the Recreate again should have made sure that the Senju would not allow Alpai to search his deck for a card, for a ritual monster. And, well, that's the lead for Alpai Engin. Alright, let's hope we're missing something. And now they are in the sideboarding procedure. What is in their side decks?
Right, let's have a look and see what we've got here. It's actually very, very similar to what we've seen before. There's the 3 Ice Hand, 2 Fire Hand, 3 Twister, Vanity Nemesis, Denko Sekka, and Mind Crush from Alpai. Now, Mind Crush could enter, try and get rid of some Scout searches. The Fire Hand, not massive of use, as everything goes to the extract rather than the graveyard.
Yes, and what about his opponent?
His opponent there has, in his side deck, an extra Qliphort Disc, some Majesty's Fiend, Monarch Stormforth, Spell Shattering Arrow, Storm, Mystical Space Typhoon, Rivalry of the Warlord, and a Solemn Warning. Now, the Solemn Warning there is probably going to be coming in, stopping some of those summons. Spell Shattering Arrow is also very helpful. Now, Mystical Space Typhoon as well. Nice bit of removal. Not really useful against the Nekroz there.
All right, and we just quickly checked with the judges.
Yep.
Recreate triggers, so it depends on which chain link it is.
Okay.
And so Senju starts a chain, and the Recreate is the wrong. Recreate automatically.
Wrong side of it, yeah.
It automatically triggers Recreate when the monster is summoned.
Ah, I see.
That's why the if is in the card. If actually tells you that it's a triggering effect.
There
So
we go.
Senju is summoned, and it's a non-optional effect. I think you have to search. Should be the logic here. And then Recreate is chainlink 1, Senju is chainlink 2, and therefore
It's
you
a
can
mandatory
search.
effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that, and well, I think neither have been a couple of our friends in the chat who might have pointed out that there was a misplay here, just like we were thinking. But no, everything was played according to the rules, and that explains why these players have been looking over Recreate that many times, really.
Yeah. Now, whilst they're side decking there, let's just have a quick look at the poll that we started right at the start there, just
Yeah.
to see what players are favouring at the moment.
There are quite a few fans of Chris here. So he's got 43% of the votes, really. So not a bad result against one of the players that is supposedly the best player in Europe at the time of this recording, really. Alpai Engin has been on a roll the last few years. especially in the German events. And some players would say this is yet another German YCS.
Yeah, it's close enough.
All right. So Qliphort triggers. It's not exactly like skill drain. It's quite.
No, I think that's why the skill drain was also coming down at that point then.
Yeah. So Alpai was aware that skill drain would stop his Senju, and Qliphort would not.
Okay.
So actually, Alpai was playing everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And well, that's how you not drop a game at all.
But we saw him make very, very quick work. So much that we couldn't really keep track of exactly what Alpai was doing at one point. Lots of cards just hitting everywhere.
All right.
As you can see, we're just going to get the cards on the table reset there.
So yeah, well, but you gotta give it to Alpai Engin, not dropping a single game up to this point, and even after these many hours of dueling, not messing up at all. When even we were, well, I say even we, it's not like we would be sitting over there playing, but playing it by the book and making sure that he's got exactly the answer he needs.
Okay, so he's going to go and get a...
It's interesting that he goes first, really.
We found that a lot. Lots of players have been favouring going second.
Yes, generally speaking, but Chris even told us that he is playing Qliphort because most players let the opponent go first, and Qliphort is a good deck to go first. He even told us that in the post-game interview that we had in the... You weren't there anymore because we locked you in a room to check out some decks.
Yeah.
But he even said that specifically, that this is one of the main advantages of Qliphort.
Now, it could be that he has a plan, basically, is the only way that I can think of it, which is a shame that he didn't go first because his hand was actually the perfect first turn hand.
All right. So now Alpai gets a surge, this time not having to fear anything like a skill drain, and only a skill drain because Qliphort doesn't help against that card.
Yep.
Unless you chain it to the effect of Senju. So there would be an opportunity to even negate a Senju with it if you chain it the right way.
Yeah.
Quite confusing, that card. All right. So here is the first combo, I would say, of the Nekroz deck. Alpai getting a Trishula from his deck thanks to some surges again.
Just warning it.
And then with the Valkyros, he can tribute away his monsters if he wants to. He now points at the Valkyros, puts both Trishula and the Senju in the graveyard. That is tribute 2, one from his hand, one from his field, and he draws 2 cards for his turn. So he's now on 4 cards in hand.
Let's just find out what those are.
Yeah, we got Manju and Mystical Space Typhoon. It's probably the Space Typhoon going face down here. And then it's back to Chris Bose, who is allowed to go
second here.
Yeah.
Now, as I was saying, he has actually got the perfect first turn hand.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder why he doesn't want to go first here.
It's very confusing. Scout down, but there is a Mystical Space Typhoon.
Yeah, but we've seen Alpai do
not
that
being
before,
chained.
when he does not activate it.
How many cards are in your hand? 4, 5, sorry.
5, yeah, sure.
Yes.
And Alpai lets him search. So I was wondering, would it be a different story in the second game when Alpai can bring in even more copies of Mystical Space Typhoon? But
No, Alpai is actually playing 3 in main.
Also, Alpai did not set the Mystical Space Typhoon. He did set the Raigeki.
Oh,
He still has the Space Typhoon in hand.
I think he's waiting for the Floodgate during his turn.
And also with a Fire hand, he will have a way of taking out the Scout in a different way. Fire hand, Ice hand, those 2 guys can wreck a Qli deck, really. So this is the hand of Chris Bose. Who now plays the Qliphort disc. And are we going to see a sacrifice? Yes. And the other cards dropped. This was his hand just a second ago. Now all of those are on the field. Almost all of those. He's got 1 more card in hand. So he set himself up for a Trishula play.
He has.
But he does have Vanity's Emptiness.
He's left Qliphort in his hand. But yeah, he has the Vanity's Emptiness.
All right.
He has the Skill Drain. Qliphort here probably would have been a good card to set to try and bait out any sort of Mystical Space Typhoons at all.
So here is the skill drain. That's 1,000 life points activation cost for Chris Bose, who drops to 6,200. And there is the MST. So you can tell, easily tell from this game, Alpai Engin has a game plan against Qliphort, and one key part of that is not using a Mystical Space Typhoon, wasting is what some people would say, on a scout, but rather saving it for something that would negate his monster's effects, like
now
skill drain or recreate.
Not actually. Chris isn't actually in a world of hurt here.
Not yet, no.
No, because he still has a Vanity's Emptiness, which no longer has to worry about a Mystical Space Typhoon.
That is definitely good news for him. However, if Alpai finds a way to get rid of one of the cards on the field that would be sent to the graveyard, then Vanity's Emptiness would also be sent to the graveyard.
Yeah. And he does have a Raigeki set.
Interestingly enough, he doesn't flip the Vanity's Emptiness, he flips Mind Crush and gets rid of Nekroz of Unicorn. So,
interesting.
A different way to counter a ritual summon.
Yeah.
And also making sure that you keep your Vanity's Emptiness, you can save it for yet another time when you need it even more.
And there's the Raigeki, which would have been the card to stop any more special summons.
Yeah, and also Raigeki would have destroyed the Vanity's Emptiness.
Yeah, and now here is the sacrifice that he can search for.
Yeah, but excellent play from Chris Bose, in my opinion, who did not waste his Vanity's Emptiness or preemptively activate it, holding on to it for the best of moments, and this wasn't the best of moments according to his game plan. Alright, so now he's gonna take some damage, and he's still safe from Trishula. That is key here. He's adding a Monolith. Oh, that's a Stealth.
Yeah.
Qliphort Stealth and Recreate are the two cards in hand for Chris Bose. And Alpai Engin is left with just a Fire hand. Then again, he's very much ahead on the field.
Yes.
That is 3-8 on Chris, is that correct? 4-6?
Yes, I believe so.
That was, we're missing one more attack here. Oh, yes.
2,900 and 1,400 attack.
Okay, so now he is on 4-6 after those two attacks.
And he's tributed them both to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, Alpai knows that he needs more cards like the Mystical Space Typhoon to stop his opponent's permanent, continuous spell trap cards. So many mix-ups here.
And he's banishing 2 there. Just be nice to see what he drew there.
Yeah, we're going to have that in a second for you guys. Our volunteers have to manually add all the cards in. And he's still not done with his turn. Is he now going to attempt and bring out Trishula? He's got a Manchu and a Twister in hand now. And with the Twister in hand, this excellent play. He found another answer to a possible floodgate, in this case, Vanity's Emptiness. Now he goes seemingly for the Nekroz cycle. He's searching for it now. And now he could activate it to get a Trishula.
Both players here playing absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we have definitely seen some moves here that you don't see every day. The understanding of this matchup of Alpai Engin, you can definitely tell he has been testing this day and night. He doesn't go for Trishula right away, possibly because he feels like his opponent will now feel safe enough to make a big push, and then he can fight back with Trishula.
Yes.
All
Although
right.
the issue with that is, does his opponent then empty his hand? Now he's just giving an extra 1,000 life points for Alpai.
Yeah. So Alpai on 9,000, Chris only on 1,900. And interesting also, did he first search for Scout? I don't think so.
No, he hasn't searched for Scout yet.
Yeah.
Now he has a Sacrifice, a Stealth, and a Recreate. He is in a perfect position to be able to use.
But very often we see players search for Scout first and then activate Upstart Goblin.
Generally, yes.
Why is it different here? Why don't you do it here?
There isn't necessarily a reason he's doing it that way around.
All right, so now he falls to 1,100 life points. Alpai's back row that looks so threatening is actually 2 bluffs, so to speak, cards that he can only activate during his own turn. That is Nekroz Cycle and Nekroz Mirror, and a Twister, the most important card in his back row.
Pendulum Summon. Oh, and it's whether he uses this Twister to get rid of the Sacrifice is the next question.
Yeah, there is the Sacrifice.
It's going to let him tribute twice.
Now, Chris only has a Recreate in hand, and Alpai is aware of that Recreate in hand, and a Qliphort Stealth. And since Chris was... he
won't actually know about the Recreate. The Recreate has been in the hand since the beginning.
No, he searched for it with Scout.
No, it was in his original hand.
All right, I'm not 100% sure on that. Anyway, Qliphort Stealth is hitting play now, and Alpai is not allowed to respawn, and that's not exactly good news for him, really.
It's kind of annoying for him, but not that annoying, because he has nothing to respond with.
Yeah, no, but is there any way for Chris to get rid of the Twister now?
It puts it back into hand.
Yeah, and that's...
which doesn't help him.
Not exactly not much of a problem for Alpai.
Nope. No, he's going to be able to search his deck there.
He actually did hit the Twister, by the way. All right, so another stealth for Chris. Yeah, he said it's the best card right after Scout in Qliphort at the moment.
It's because it's a big 2,800 attack monster.
Yeah, he said the last line is the one that makes all the difference. That says, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. So now he passes with 2 back row cards, one of them being Recreate, one of them being Vanity's Emptiness. And Alpai has one answer, and that is Twister.
Now,
and well, also
Trishula actually only has 2,700 attack there. So if he was to activate Vanity's Emptiness in response...
Isn't it now time for Firehand? No.
No.
It's not. So...
that negates, and there's the Twister.
There's the Twister.
Unfortunately, that now wastes the Twister.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you should say waste.
It does in the case of the fact that there's Vanity's Emptiness there. To be fair, those 2 answers are brilliant.
Yeah.
Because he only has one way of getting rid of one of them, and either of them are going to give him problems. Trishula, I believe, only actually has 2,700 attack.
Yes.
The Stealth has 2,800. Now...
Alpai's hand, Firehand and Ice Hand.
I'm not actually sure if Chris did draw for Monolith.
He's got a Stealth in hand, but I think he searched...
He did search for that with the Sacrifice.
Yeah. Is it mandatory to draw?
I don't believe it is. It's you can. He's just either forgotten or... and there's the Vanities. And Alpai has no way of getting rid of it currently.
It is you can draw, so he doesn't have to draw. I don't see a good reason to not draw, to be honest. All
Probably
right.
seeing another Stealth coming down now.
So Alpai losing his Nekroz Cycle.
That is risky. Oh, he's actually returning the Vanity's Emptiness to hand. That is actually
That's not
impressive.
risky.
I forgot that you could target your own cards with Stealth, because carrier is only your opponent's.
Yeah.
And so is...
but we've seen him do that before. No, we haven't seen him, but Pitai Maya do that before.
yeah, with his own Scout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Opening the gate, inviting all of his Pendulum monsters in.
And he can now Pendulum Summon, yes.
Yes, and
Brilliant.
is it gonna be enough? 2 more monsters. They don't have... they have the original stats. So that is...
They won't have their original stats there. They'll have 1,800 attack. When you're Pendulum Summoning the monsters, they do only get... Yeah.
All right, so
but that is still game.
it's still game for Chris Bose.
Nice.
Excellent
that's a nice play.
comeback from him. And, well, the big difference maker was that Alpai only had a Twister when he needed 2 cards to also stop the Vanity's Emptiness.
But that's one of the things that Qli is getting good at, because we saw Yosenju attempt an anti-meta, and it did it very, very well, but it didn't have the power then to back it up. Qliphort does this now, especially with Stealth. As we've seen, it can return to your hand things like Vanity's Emptiness, stopping it from being destroyed. You've got Skill Drain, which messes with a lot of effect monsters, among other things.
All right. And well, we have seen a lot of interesting plays, and no matter what happens next, Chris Bose has won one award, and that is the first player that took a game from Alpai Engin.
Now, well, to be fair, he's got all of the way here as well, so it's very, very good.
In the first time he reached the top cut of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series, and he's definitely standing his ground against one of the greats in the game. And it appears that Alpai did not exchange any cards from his main and side deck, whereas Chris is just checking again that he has the perfect build for that matchup.
Now, you've interviewed a lot of winners over
the course of the
last 2 days. Have any of them explained why Dance Princess is in the deck?
No. We've never talked about that card.
Okay, but it's just an interesting choice, because I've never actually seen any player actually play it.
I think there are only very specific situations where you need it. I mean, that's just generic knowledge. That's why you run 1 copy instead of 2 or even 3 copies. I think last weekend when I was seeing those guys, Alpai for example, live in action in Berlin at a local tournament, they did use it from time to time for certain appliances.
I mean, it does stop your monster from being targeted, apart from itself, I believe.
Yeah. I think it prevents your opponent from activating anything in response to the activation of a ritual spell card. And in that regard, it can serve as another way or another out to Vanity's Emptiness.
Yeah.
In certain situations. All right. So Alpai Engin dropping the first game. Is this going to mess with his head?
Possibly. The look on his face says it may have done. Although that was a little smile.
And Chris is feeling quite proud of himself, as far as I can tell. But momentary look of pain there after he was done picking up those 5 cards. Let's take a look at his hand first. Disc, Scout, Sacrifice, Monolith, and a Solemn Warning.
Not a bad hand to immediately set up.
And Alpai has all monsters, something that normally you love to see in a Mermail deck, for example. Oh no, he's got a Kaleidoscope.
He also has 2 Bryonics and a Clausulus, so
yeah,
it's not...
He's already hard at work changing that. Yeah, he originally only had monsters, of course. Now, the Clausulus sent to the graveyard, that gives him a Kaleidoscope. He does activate the Kaleidoscope before searching with Bryonac. Well, with a Unicorn in hand, that makes perfect sense. In case you just heard that little applause right there, that was the delay between the stream and the time of when people are seeing this match, also in our venue here. So they just learned that Chris has taken a game from Alpai.
Now time has just been called.
So finish this move and finish this turn, and then 3 more turns.
Yes. He's attributing that to draw more cards. It looks like he's really going to have to go towards a lock as quickly as possible.
And that changes a lot of things. Suddenly, the Solemn Warning and the Qliphort Scout in Chris's hand are not as good as they used to be just 5 seconds ago. And we have seen that in the top 16 feature match, where the Qliphort player had to invest a lot of life points early on. And falling behind in life points is really not good against the deck that has the Nekroz of Valkyrus that can prevent any battle damage for a turn.
Now Gungnir has come to hand, and 2 cards have been removed to get a ritual spell. And there is Cycle.
And Alpai now has a Fire Hand. Didn't normal summon this turn, so setting Fire Hand could be quite a good opening here, or definitely not a bad opening. But he's still not done with a Nekroz Mirror. Summoning
comes the Gungnir.
Gungnir, yeah. And Gungnir is also a card that can give Qliphort a lot of trouble. Being able to negate the effect of a Scout, just like a Mystical Space Typhoon. And now he's about to set the Fire Hand. In any way, he has given away to his opponent that he has a monster that can be normal summoned or set. So Chris is thinking this is either a Shurit, but not very likely, a Manchu or Senchu, but extremely unlikely, or a hand. So I think
Yeah.
he's aware of what's hiding there. Bryanek and Cycle in hand for Alpai, Gungnir and Firehand on the field.
Pays 800 for the scout.
Also, Upstart Goblin also not good in this situation.
Not at all.
None of these cards, like if we would have 5 more minutes on the clock, it wouldn't matter that much. But suddenly, in the timeout, those cards become a lot worse. And you have to keep in mind, those guys were allowed to side deck prior to that game. Time
Yes,
has
they were.
not been called before that game. So you got to question whether it was the right move for Chris Bose to leave in the Upstart Goblin, to leave in the Solemn Warning, knowing that he would be, or he should have known that he was getting close to the timeout.
One of the biggest issues that we've got in here is that we don't actually have a round timer. Players do not know how long they have left on the round unless they ask.
Although, yeah, exactly. They can always ask the judge. Sometimes the judge also tells them this is how much time we got left in the round.
Okay.
But I cannot tell you for certain if that is the case here.
There's the Upstart Goblin.
Yeah, good news for Alpai.
Okay, so he has a carrier, Upstart Goblin, Solemn Warning, Disc. So we can see what he's going to attempt to do with that. It's going to be a Pendulum Summon with the Monolith, summoning the carrier, equipped with a Sacrifice, tributed for Disc, bouncing to hand, using Snatch. He can use Snatch Steal.
Yeah.
I've just realised what he's actually really got there.
There is the Monolith, and Alpai would now have to discard either Bryanek or Cycle for Gungnir's effect if he wants to deny his opponent the Pendulum Summon, but I think he doesn't.
I think
Does he want to get rid of the monster that has been summoned? Or does he wait for the sacrifice?
No, there we go. He's destroying it now.
Yeah. No, not want to risk falling behind even further. So that means Chris has a Disc in hand, Sacrifice, Solemn Warning, and Snatch Steal.
Yes. Now, he
could.
I think what he might do is attempt to Snatch Steal and attack the face down, but it would be a Fire Hand, meaning a monster would go to the graveyard and Ice Hand would come out, which really does not help.
No, not at all. Also, Snatch Steal, with him not being able to do any damage, Snatch Steal would give Alpai even more of a lead in terms of life points.
Yes.
So none of that is good news for Chris and for fans of the UK player or the last Qliphort player in the field. He now starts setting. And there's a Disc.
No more summoned, and more than likely we'll have a Sacrifice. There we go.
Yes. Is he going to attack? And if... Well, is he going to attack and is he going to activate Snatch Steal first? If he activates Snatch Steal, he can at least get some damage in. Ah, no, he can't because it's a Fire Hand.
Yep. If he attacks with the Disc into the face down, getting rid of the Fire Hand, it would destroy Disc, but then he wouldn't get the search for the Ice Hand.
He sets the
And
warning.
he's just let the turn go.
Yeah, I mean, he sees the writing on the wall. I think he's pretty certain that it's a hand that is hiding there. But it's not exactly good news for him here.
Now there is a Bryonic in hand with a Twister. There we go, and there's the Fire Hand.
That's the Fire Hand, yes. And will Chris activate the warning now?
No.
No. Yeah, definitely you wanna wait for the attack to conclude, and now you can activate the warning because it's a counter trap. You can actually activate it in the damage step. So, good thing for Chris is that Alpai lost a few life points there, but the bad news is he lost even more thanks to that Solemn Warning.
Now there is still a Gungnir on the field. Now he's thinking, if I attack, what might happen? Is there a skill drain there? If there's a skill drain there, I'm going to take more damage.
If there would be a skill drain, the Twister in hand for Alpai would solve that problem.
Yes.
So life points are 5,200 for Chris, and Alpai should be down on 7 something.
He does not set the... Okay, he's attacking into it to do a bit more damage. Yeah, if he doesn't set the Twister here, he could be in a whole world of trouble because it will be the last turn.
Yeah, but he's got a Bryanek, so very likely that he's going to search for Valkyrus, isn't it? Oh, Alpai on 8-5. Yeah, because the Disc doesn't have that much attack yet.
Yeah, it only has 2,100.
Yeah. So the back row, in case you're wondering, for Chris Bose, it is the sacrifice face up and the snatch steal face down. With the snatch steal, he could do quite a bit of damage. Alpai risks the attack, and it's going to succeed, is what we can tell you. And that puts Chris even further behind. And if that attack... Well,
there's the Bryonic,
there's
and
the Bryonic.
a Valkyrus should be coming out. If not, it will be a decisive armor, which may not be the best option right now.
Yeah, I think there's no question that
yes,
Valkyrus...
that is definitely a
that is the
Valkyrus.
Valkyrus, and maybe we can see the handshake in just a second here. There's no way for Chris Bose to apply get more damage in it, I think. Alpai
No.
sets the Twister, so he's also safe against certain cards. And yeah, he passes play. Chris needs to draw something. Cards in hand 0 at the moment.
Let's see what he's just drawn into.
Yeah, I don't see a single
As a
card.
Qliphort stealth. Actually, that does help. He can't attack, however.
Yeah. He would need to get, if he could, I mean, Snatch Steal on Gungnir is excellent if he had a Nekroz card in hand, because then he could do that Gungnir move where you attack, destroy the monster that is attacking when your opponent drops Valkyrus.
Is it to drop a Nekroz monster, or is it just a card? Because I believe it's just a...
No, it's archetype stamped, so to speak. You need to
discard one Nekroz card. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Otherwise, the card would be a little bit too good.
It would be quite ridiculous.
Yeah. Although some people would argue that it's, as it stands, it's already quite good.
Yeah.
All right, so there is the Qliphort Stealth in Chris's hand. And you can think for yourself, guys, what else is there? He reads the Gungnir, he figures out that he needs a Nekroz card in hand. He's still got a Pendulum Summon, of course. And he's got the Stealth in hand, but what matters here? Well, is there anything that matters? Chris activating the Snatch Steal. Alpai.
Activating the Twister.
Yeah. So he keeps his monster even.
Now, here's where it gets tricky. I mean, what I personally would have done would be to do that first to get rid of the back row. And let's go down, and there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now Chris realizes there is nothing he can do, and Alpai shows it. There's the Valkyrus. It's going to save me. It's making sure that I'm not going to take any damage. And even though Alpai has dropped the first game this weekend, he has still not been beasted. He hasn't been dropping a single match.
No. He is doing fantastically, playing really, really well.